Hey listeners, you're listening to the Midnight Readers podcast. Grab some tea, a midnight snack, and cuddle up in bed as we dive deep into today's most popular fantasies, sci-fi, and mysteries. We're your hosts. I'm Lily.
I'm Brittany.
And I'm Christy.
This season we'll be discussing the heart-pounding military fantasy that's part Hunger Games and part How to Train Your Dragon. That's right, grab your flight jacket, we're headed to Beskaya.
A dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A reader without their book or this podcast is dead. Welcome to the revolution. My best advice, don't die and don't worry. We most likely won't eat our allies and dynamite.
In this episode, we'll be discussing Book 2, Iron Flame, chapters 37 through 50, where the Assembly attempts to raise the wards and fails. The Sorrengails siblings sneak off to Cordyn, and everyone goes on a deadly hike.
Before we get into it, this is your warning for major spoilers ahead. This includes potentially all Empyrean series materials. We're also avid fans of the Moss universe and might accidentally let spoilers slip for other popular romantasy book series as well. Sorry in advance, like the books, this podcast is rated R, so be warned.
Also, a friendly reminder to please like, subscribe, and follow. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also join our growing community on Patreon for bonus content and more.
Last we left off, Violet and Xaden had just stolen half the Riders' Quadrant and flown to Eurasia. Now Violet is finally mended from her 5 days of torture and is back in Xaden's bed, where she's having yet another Venom dream. And I have thoughts. So I don't know if I mentioned this in the last episode, but there are some communication questions that I had. And it's both for how are the Venom communicating. When I say Venom, I mean, like, how is Jack communicating with the Venom outside of Beskaya?
Mm-hmm.
And how are the people communicating? How did Nolan know so quickly, literally minutes after the heist happened, to go get his lemonade and put some elixir in it and have it ready to give to Violet? How was he ready?
I mean, it's a good question, but knowing these people, I feel like they could just have that shit ready. Like, they might have it with them.
At all times?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, they
Yes.
could, like, at least the solution that they could drop in a drink very quickly, and then...
Well, Nolan seems like the perfect candidate for the Beskaya Boy Scouts. So I feel like always be ready, you know?
Oh my gosh.
But it does beg the question of how were they aware of it so quickly? Was it dragon to dragon talking? Because we know that doesn't work over distances. So was it like telephone where, hey, I need you to tell so-and-so so he can tell so-and-so so he can tell so-and-so?
I think what we're supposed to think, at least, is that so leadership was notified the second that Arik put his hand into that glass case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had enough time between when Arik put his hand in that case and when all of them retreated out of the library and split up to realize something was going on. Now, how they communicated everything, I don't know. But I feel like it was enough time for them to come find each other.
Yeah, but I mean, they were notified in Caldir that something had happened.
But you're talking about Venom, though, correct?
Well, right now I'm talking about Navarre. How do they communicate with each other from far distances? We know they send correspondence, but this was, like, Markham was in Caldir when he found out that the archives had been heisted.
Yeah, but if they're Venom, then they have a collective consciousness, so they would have known that.
I don't think they have a collective conscious.
They're all connected.
That's what it says during the hike, is that they've got a collective like they all know what everyone else knows
with their wyvern,
mm-hmm.
not with each other.
It sounded like it was. I had thought it was talking more about all of them, like all the Venom have a collective, like what one knows, everybody knows.
I also thought that, Christy.
That's not how I read it, but I could be wrong. But
Either way, it's confusing.
as far as this dream goes and the venom goes, I think I said it last episode where I think this venom does have the power of dream walking. And maybe that is how they're communicating with each other in Besgaiath.
Okay,
He got into Jack's dreams.
so maybe. But do you remember, I pulled this up from our text messages when I was reading this section of Iron Flame. Do you remember way back when we were reading Iron Flame for the first time? And at the end of the book, I mentioned, after we had finished the book, Brittany brought up that Yarrow said that there was supposed to be a second signet and that we were already supposed to know. And I was like, oh, it's probably dreamwalking, right? Because that explains the end of the book. And then later, when I was talking to Johan after he had finished the book, he also brought up something that made me think, oh, it's probably dreamwalking. And we both talked about that at length. And then I messaged both of you, and I was like, wouldn't it make more sense if her signet is dreamwalking? And at the time, Brittany, I think, the first time Brittany had a thought, which was, well, it doesn't make sense that her signet is dreamwalking because Andarna was still in the dreamless sleep. And I was like, oh, true, she probably can't channel while she's in the dreamless sleep. And then the second time it was, Brittany said that, like, logically, she couldn't communicate through dreams because Andarna was actually awake. And I really don't know what I believe, but I know that whatever we were talking about, it convinced me that she wasn't a dreamwalker, or that, like, dreamwalking was a thing.
I don't know. I don't remember that whole conversation. I do remember when I first read the book, I was convinced as well that it was dreamwalking. And then somebody on the internet pointed out that the first dream she has, Andarna is still in the dreamless sleep, and she's running towards Tairn and Andarna in her dream, and Xaden is not there. So while the end of the book kind of makes us think that she's sharing Xaden's dream, that, somebody was like, well, I think the venom is also visiting her and saying the same things to her that they are saying to Xaden, because why would Xaden dream about Tairn and Andarna? Why wouldn't he dream about running to Sorrengails?
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh, that makes sense. I guess you're right.
Yeah, that does make sense. And it makes sense that the venom is just, like, messing with her brain. And they have all kinds of weird nonsense powers that I cannot explain. But it just reminded me of that because we're reading the second dream at the beginning of this section, and I was like, man, none of this makes sense. I have a picture of the original text messages, but we don't have to talk about them. I just remember being so confused about it. And did we talk about it on our signet episode?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay, well, I don't remember that, but shit is confusing.
But speaking of timeline issues, I also thought it was really weird that, okay, so they take the riders from Besgaiath and fly to Eratia. It's a 12-hour flight to Eratia, or is it 18 hours? Something like that.
I don't know.
And it's days later that Mira shows up, and she says that Lilith showed up at Samara 12 hours after the escape and tells them everything. And then they fly away immediately. They had an hour to decide and fly away. Where have they been? It's been days.
Well, it's a big thing of dragons. Like, they probably had to stop for potty breaks.
Yeah,
You know?
potty breaks is a thing.
Some
For
snacks and
days?
Twizzlers.
For days? Where did they
Sheep,
sleep?
Potty breaks.
Little dragon sex.
Avoiding other wyverns. Avoiding
There you
venom.
go. Yeah. They did duck and weave with the trees.
Yeah.
Where did they sleep? And again, for days?
On their dragons. They slept on their dragons.
Mm-hmm.
The dragons who, if
there
you
you go.
fall off, they will let you fall and die?
Well, it sounds like nobody fell off. I don't.
Right. Yeah. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Also, this scene where Mira flies up with I need to see that on a movie screen. That would have been fucking awesome. Like this just massive riot coming in.
Yeah.
And especially when he takes out, what's her dragon's name?
Tyne.
Yeah, when he puts his mouth around Tyne's neck.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so good.
I felt bad for Tyne and Mira. They're like, we're joining your gang.
I did, but they weren't sure. And then, he didn't hurt Tyne. It was just,
just
threatened him.
Caution.
It was a warning. It's like a cat warning bite when they're like, like leave my butt alone.
Yeah.
Like, this reminded me, we can take this out, but Rachel was listening to our episode and she said she agreed with Brittany about the width of the parapet, and I got angry all over again.
Yes!
And I was like, no, Rachel, no, that's so
it can't
dumb.
be a highway that you stroll across.
Yeah, literally. I was like, come the fuck on.
Okay, we're going to have a thing, another video that we're going to take, and we're going to put Brittany up on a parapet, and we're going to get some massive fans.
Yeah.
And,
And she has to carry a giant bag of books.
Uh-huh. And we're going to, like, throw water at you and stuff like that, and... you're going to have one shoe on, just one shoe.
We'll have a bunch of fans, like, blowing on her. Sorry.
I will say, listening to it, I was sitting there yelling at it again because I was like, I didn't mean for Violet. I meant for Dylan. That's why it bothers me. Dylan practiced for this. He didn't have Jack Barlow behind him. It wasn't raining when he started. Yes, he had wind, but he just kind of slipped off.
Are you nailing the guy that slipped off and died?
She's saying it should have been easy and he shouldn't have died.
No, I don't think it should have been easy. I think it should have been easier.
Okay.
And I just can't picture his
technicalities
slipping.
Well, I guess we are well rid of dipshit Dylan then.
Yeah.
If you're too stupid to stay on the parapet.
We're weeding out the weak.
But anyway, tell Rachel thank you, and
I will not.
She's my favorite listener.
Rachel's gonna walk the parapet too. And
yep,
Lily and I
you and Rachel
screaming.
Yep.
Favorite listener. Thank you, Rachel.
Number one fan. Lily and I were like, we're coming for you, Rachel.
Okay. Well, we do get some more of the assembly here as well. They do, after they wake up, they have a little morning blowjob and then go off to see the assembly.
Just normal stuff. Yeah. Which, how did I forget this scene, by the way? Like, how did I totally forget the opening blowjob? Because, what the fuck?
There are 3 sex scenes in this entire book, and 2 of them are in this section.
I totally forgot about it. And also the part where he's like, I want them to hear? How did I forget that? Oh my god.
Yeah, see.
I was like, damn.
I will say this. If somebody were to say that to me in real life, I would shut up. I can't.
She's not an exhibitionist, y'all.
Nope.
And the best part about it is he was bluffing.
He was.
Which is even better.
He's like, you need to put a sound shield up today. Done.
It's already done.
But I do love that she woke up and she was like, okay, so I need to feel alive. So I'm going to do the thing that makes me feel the most alive. After being tortured.
Backtracking just briefly to the dream, I forgot one thing. So there's a line where the Venom says to her, bold choice to move so far from what you perceive as the safety of the wards. What does he mean by that?
Well, we find out Jack didn't become a Venom until he was at Basgiath. Until after threshing. We know that much.
Maybe it's a dragon.
I understand that the wards are not as safe as they thought, but it makes me question, like, okay, well then what are the wards for? realistically.
The wyvern can't exist behind them, and they think that the venom are powerless. They're weaker. They are
Yeah.
weaker. Jack does say it's harder to channel.
It's just
But-
interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the griffins can't, the griffin flyers can't channel.
Which is, yeah. And which is another weird, it's just, why would the wards, how do the wards work? It really makes me question.
Yes. And we will talk more about that when we visit the wardstone later, because I have questions too.
Okay.
But we finally get to know the names of all the assembly members. There's,
Mm-hmm.
I always say this wrong, Ulysses?
Ulysses, I assume?
Ulysses. Yes.
That's what I thought it was.
So
Yeah.
whenever discussing the president who shares the same name, I always call him useless because I can't say the actual name. I don't know why. But okay, so there's Ulysses, Kylan, who is Battle Axe.
Ulysses.
I can't say it.
You said
I was just going to let it go.
All right, I won't say
Lily's
anything.
like, nope.
I won't say anything. I won't say anything else.
I don't know why. It just won't come out of my mouth. But there's Kylan, there's Suri, there's Brennan, Zayden, Felix, and Trissa. Are all of them writers?
That's a question that's brought up later.
It does say all 10 dragons go to the wardstone. So I'm assuming they're all writers. What are
Me as
their
well.
Yeah. What are their signets? Are they all considered dead? Like Brennan and the one that I cannot say the name because I'll say it wrong?
I would assume if they're not considered dead, they're known to be a part of the rebellion by leadership, but nobody else.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if they were even well known enough to be, I mean, I know they're strong writers, but they're not, they were never at Best Gaiath, so I don't know if it mattered if they were really alive or dead.
They
Well,
were.
it had to be.
Felix said that he left 6 years
Oh,
ago.
Dragon Riders, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Felix said that he left 6 years ago. And when Melgren meets with them later, he says that you guy, I thought I liked it better when I thought you were dead. So he also faked his death.
How did I miss that? How did I in my mind, I thought they were just the other side. I didn't even think about the fact they've got dragons. Huh.
Also,
Damn.
you guy is one-eyed. I just thought, you know.
Oh, you guy. Okay. Okay. Oh, he's only got one eye?
He's only got one eye.
Okay. Well, we
Are
can
we
just call him
talking
Hanji.
about Ulysses?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yes.
are. Who is now, you can call him Hanji now.
Yeah, I might as well.
Who's the one
Well,
eye?
he's an
the
asshole.
One I represent.
He's an asshole. I don't really want to call him Hanji. And speaking
Is
of
he though?
yeah, speaking of assholes, why does Suri hate Violet so much?
That's a
What
good question.
is her issue?
Jealousy.
Jealousy?
Uh-huh.
Maybe.
My biggest thing though is I want to know what their signets are and can we trust them? Because by the end of this book, I don't really trust most of them. I trust Felix and I might trust Trissa.
I like Trissa. I like Trissa for some reason. Wait, who's teaching Violet?
Felix.
Is that Felix?
Felix.
Oh, I thought that was okay. Yeah, then we won't name him the Hongenator because I thought that was the one who's
Hongenator.
like teaching her. So
Do you call
So-
Hanji that?
oh yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
Hongenator.
That's wonderful.
The Hange. He's like the Fawns.
Yeah.
He has like a little jacket. He's cool.
Aw.
Oh my gosh.
Well, they do find out in this meeting that I do love that they're like, we quarantined Dane and the scribes.
Yeah.
Like they're the same.
I know. I was like, dang, they put them on the same level.
Yeah. And I think it's Zayden was like, well, the only reason we have Work's journal is because of those scribes. So I was like, damn. Thank you, Zayden, for sticking up for Jacinia. But also, then they were like, we have Work's journal? Like Work of the first 6? And so we know who Warwick is. And there's also, we had at one time, Lyra's journal.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder who the other of the first 6 are. And if have we met them in a heading, or will we learn more about them? I have questions.
How many gods are there?
There are 6 gods, I believe. Amari, Malik, Zinal,
6 and the 1?
Hedotus, the god of love that I can't pronounce either. It's like
I don't.
Loil something. Lolil or something like that.
Okay. That was the one thing that kind of confused me when they were around the wardstone was they kept saying the 6 and the 1, or she had read the 6 and the 1, but yet they only did the 6. So you're like, well, does nobody bring up the 1? And I was reading through Reddit, and somebody had a theory that they think Andarna is all the other dragon types combined, so all the other 6, and she's the one that's combined in the rainbow scales, so she's like an uber dragon. And I was like, that would be so fucking cool if she is really a cross of all of them and like the 7th uber breed.
Well, I was looking at your theories that you wrote in the notes, and I noticed that you were talking about how you were wondering if they were trying to create the next 6 or 7 when they went to the wardstone. And I was thinking the same. I think that's the implication that Violet is trying to attain, is that she's by doing the most powerful riders in Orisha. But I obviously don't think it's about that. It's clearly not about the most powerful riders. And I think we find that out at the end of the book. But it makes me wonder if there's a correlation between the bloodlines of the dragons, the bloodlines of maybe the 6 or 7 of them that end up at the wardstone, and possibly the gods. So I don't know if it's all connected, but it makes me wonder if it's supposed to be correlated in some way. Like the 6 dragon breeds end up with the 6 people that have rare signets, and that's part of them becoming the new 6, quote unquote, or 7, I guess.
That would make sense. And what if, just to go wild with it, what if somehow we find out they were descendants? So it is about the bloodline. So maybe it's the descendants, because when Quinn talks about the family line of the dragons versus the family line of the rider, that you get that family line of dragon, family line of rider matching up with a certain level of signet.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
That might be, yeah, I agree. I was also thinking that. It could be that. It could be have nothing to do with the bloodlines of the dragons. It could have nothing to do with the bloodlines of the riders. But the way that it's starting to set up here makes me think that they could be at least connected.
Yeah. When you wrote in the notes, what if they were the descendants of the first 6? I was like, fuck, what if?
It makes sense.
How cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if it was like dragon and rider that are descended from that. Because actually a lot of the dragons, would they still kind of either be around or they would be just the kids of those dragons? Because it's only been 600 years.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, shit. Wait, how long did Andarna's egg sit around before she opened up? Wasn't it 600 or 400 years?
650 years.
600.
So she was around when the first 6 were there.
Yes, she was. And clearly
Did we know
she
that
can
before,
hear
or am I
things. What?
Did we know that before? Or am I coming to the table late for that?
I think it was there. We just didn't put it together before.
Okay.
But it does, now that you bring it up, like it makes you think, what were the signets of the first 6? And I also noticed there are 6 provenances, and are they each from a different providence? Because you got Warwick from Lucerys.
I had the same thought.
Lyra's from Moraine.
And we know that Riddick is Moranian, right?
I think
Isn't it Riddick or is he Lucerish?
Sawyer is Lucerish.
Sawyer's Lucerish. Okay.
I'm not sure where Riddick is from.
And the hatchlings, they choose when to come out, right? So like Andarna waited the 650 years.
For
and
her
she could have
special
waited for
person.
Violet.
Yeah, and she waited to hear for the dragons to be talking about the weakling daughter of the general who was poised to take over the scribes. And that's when she decided I can be hatched.
Interesting.
Which I thought was funny because you know how every kid is like, I never asked to be born. I feel like this is parent Rebecca Yarros being like, the dragons asked to be born.
Well, and didn't you say, what, like 4 of their hatchlings have just been born?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, are the other 6 gonna get hatchlings? That would be crazy! Oh my god. But they already have dragon. But Violet has 2. I don't know. That's crazy.
What about some of the griffin riders? Like, are there any? Oh, damn. No, they die with their griffins, don't they?
Yeah.
Does it work both ways? The griffin dies if the rider dies, but does it work the other way?
I had the same question. Yeah. I think.
Because I would like Marin to be one of the 6. I'm just saying.
I think that when the rider dies, the griffin dies, and vice versa. I think.
Damn.
But did you want to talk about the barons?
So that was another thing that I saw in there. And that was when we were looking at the map, I think last week. That was one thing that I felt like there's something there. The way that it looks, they talk about it. Like they talk about it a whole lot if it's not significant in some ways. And it's supposed to be a ruined land. But what if it isn't ruined? What if there is something there that people think it's ruined so they don't go? And this was another theory. This wasn't my theory. It was another theory off of Reddit. That Andarna's breed's hatching grounds lay in the Barrens, and that it was sucked dry of magic by Venin, a new threat that came from a place overseas, where they probably speak the common language. Justinia translates the story. I don't know what that means. With no magic around, the dragons of that breed grew weak, and their eggs couldn't hatch. Andarna's egg was collected and transported to the Vale when the people evacuated the Barrens. And then...
Wait,
another said
back up. Mm-hmm. So Andarna's egg was in the Barrens?
That's where she came from. Where her breed hatched from originally was the Barrens, and they transported it out when. I don't know, but that's assuming it was. I guess when they moved them all together. Yeah. And somebody said they have to get her back to the Barrens because I can't remember by the end of this book, is she fully restored? She's all good to go, or is she still struggling?
She can fly, just not long distances.
Okay, so she still needs some sort of magic restored because somebody else was saying that to restore her magic, they needed to get her back to the Barrens, if that's the case. I'm really loving this theory, by the way.
I mean, she's got magic.
Her magic isn't necessarily broken. She was born without a muscle.
She's just disabled. Represent. I mean...
Well, yeah, but if it's something that... But see, I didn't think it was that she was born without the muscle. I thought it was because, and that's why Violet felt responsible, because she used her magic with Violet. She was in the dreamless sleep for too long, which meant her size grew too big and the muscle did not develop.
It's like when you have complications with a baby. Like if the baby's born premature, then the baby doesn't fully develop. Yeah. And that's what happened with Andarna. It wasn't It wasn't just that she was in the dreamless sleep for too long. She was in the dreamless sleep because she started doing mature things like magic too early. And then when she went into her process of dreamless sleep, she didn't fully form her wings, was the way that I understood it.
Which, to be fair, do we know that she was in the dreamless sleep too long? She is the 7th breed, so maybe that's just normal for her breed.
True. I don't know.
But
I never judged her for that, personally.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like...
judging her for it.
No, I didn't think you were. I was making a joke about how Taryn was like, she's still sleeping.
Aw. I felt like it was heartbreaking when she hears Violet saying that she's broken, and she's like, I am not broken.
Yeah.
I was...
Yeah. I mean, I felt that way when I was in college. My friends would be like, oh, she can't have that, or oh, you shouldn't be eating this, or oh, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, I'm not broken. I'm not some fragile thing. Yes, I have to take a shot in medicine, but I'm not broken. I'm perfectly normal. I had a potential boyfriend tell me that he wouldn't date me until I was healthy. It's the way people look at you. You get sensitive about it.
And I was a preemie, and I was born without a functioning heart, but I'm fine.
Really?
Yeah, I had open heart surgery when I was a year old.
Damn.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I got some health issues, but I'm okay. I'm just a little, achy.
Both my siblings were preemies by over a month. My older sibling, his lung collapsed. And of course, he's perfectly healthy.
Oh,
He's like...
You're like, damn you.
Yeah, I know, right? I was 3 days late. Of course I'm late.
yeah, I was early, and I was also really tiny. Like, my grandma said when I was born, I was so small that they would put me in doll clothes because preemie clothes did not fit. So
Oh.
she had fun dressing me up like a baby doll.
Oh.
I'm still small. So Andarna and me, twinnies.
My thoughts on Andarna, I feel like they made a way for Violet to keep her seat. And she thought she would never fly.
Yeah.
She would never be able to climb Tarn. And they made accommodations for her. And we have Sawyer at the end of this book losing his leg. I feel like they're going to find a way for Sawyer to continue to be a flyer.
100%.
And they're going to find a way for, if she wants to, Andarna to bear a rider.
Yeah, I love the representation in these books. We have someone with a chronic illness. We have later sort of an amputee. We got a preemie. We got a they them. We got all these representations. I just love it.
Yes.
Well, I think too for Andarna, who's to say that she has to fly to bear a rider?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if she wants it, she should be able to. But other than that, that's her only thing. She should be able to, with physical therapy, fly perfectly fine.
I do think she's going to end up flying, but I think if they had something like that, I know with a time-stopping thing, they said all feather tails have something that they can, that form of magic.
Something special.
Right.
Yeah.
But what if she could access something that gave that to her and she didn't lose it? That was her own magic, that she could be that one dragon that can just wield on, I don't know. We haven't really seen the dragons wield magic themselves.
I was just about to say that.
It. I think you said it before, though. I'm getting it from you. I'm totally stealing it from you.
Well, I mean,
it was you that said it.
She kind of wields at the end. Kind of.
She does have this color-changing magic, so she does... I'm assuming she uses magic to change colors.
Yeah.
But again, I really want to know, what magic do the dragons have? All we see them do is talk to each other, I guess, is the only magic that we've seen them perform.
Well, aren't their hatching grounds important for them to access that?
I don't know. I know that I found it interesting that when the baby hatches, they say that the magic in the Vale or the valley changed and he turned it back into a hatching ground. And as there are more dragons and gryphons channeling magic, Violet says she feels like there is actually more magic there and it's increasing.
Yeah.
So,
and see, that's my thing, is maybe we will see these dragons being able to wield that kind of magic once they have their own hatching grounds again, because right now they're all sharing. They're all stuffed into one place versus having their own separate that really identifies with them.
I don't know.
Could be.
I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens because I'm sure they're going to go back eventually.
We started to talk about this a little bit earlier, but let's talk about the 6 most powerful riders that go to this wardstone. How the hell did they calculate this?
I wanted to know that too. I was like, on what level? Is it because of your dragons?
Because as we know, there are hidden signets out there, aka Xaden. was this in the calculation? Is it
Probably
just
not.
is it just signet strength, or is it your dragon's power? Because that would mean that it's not the most 6 powerful riders, it's the most 6 powerful dragons.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
mean, I feel like they had to calculate it with the dragons because that's the only way we know where people are in the hierarchy except for their signets. So, and I mean, their signets come from the dragons. People all fear Cairn.
Legendary battle dragon. But
So, it has to be the dragons.
that also brings up the question of how do they know how powerful the dragons are? Is it the dragons who just say, yeah, I'm more powerful than him?
I think the dragons have a hierarchy based on the Empyrean, and that they probably told someone, this is our hierarchy, so the 6 of you are it. That's gotta be it, right?
You would think.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they did this wrong.
Yeah.
I would think so. And I have said this before, so I'm probably just repeating. I'm sorry. But we also are reminded multiple times that these are not the first. They're just the first that survived. So
Yeah.
how does that also equal? Because when they talk about a rider dying can kill a dragon,
If
I
the
mean,
bond
I don't
is
know.
strong enough, the only time a dragon dies, and they said that they've only had it happen 3 times in recorded history. If the bond is strong enough, then if the rider dies, it can cause the death of a dragon.
But I think what Christy is tapping into, which does make sense, is that the first 6, by being the ones that survive, doesn't necessarily mean that they're the strongest. It just means that they're the ones that ended up there.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So it's
Although-
like, why would they choose the most powerful?
For the wardstone, yeah. I feel like that had to be Warwick being like, yeah, of course I'm the most powerful, so I'm going to say they need the most powerful to do this.
Yeah,
True.
I don't
Because
know.
True.
he's an asshole.
Is he?
He wanted to keep the wards only for Navarre, which, by the way, I would like to point out that Tyrandor is part of Navarre. Why
Yeah.
didn't they activate the wardstone?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yep.
But one of the questions I had about the wardstone is, one, the symbols on the stone are similar to the ones in Warwick's journal.
But not exact.
Not exact. And it's smaller than the one at Besgaia. So do we think this is going to shield a smaller area than Navarre's?
Could it be a different faction of dragons that did it?
Maybe just Tyrandor? I don't know.
Which would suck for poor Emil, especially since they were doing it so that they could kind of shield poor Emil a little bit. More like they want to shield Horatia too, but...
Yeah.
And how did no one think, let me put my bloody hand on this cold stone and not think, maybe we should imbue it?
No, for real. For real. How did they not think I should use some magic on this? Not even one person was like, you know what would help? Magic.
Yeah. You know these alloy daggers that we've been working on, and they, feel different, but kind of similar, maybe.
And this giant rock that someone thinks is iron,
Yeah.
a metal,
Yeah.
and what else is metal? Dragon eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I keep coming back to that. Because that's fucking crazy to me. Magic. It's all in there, and yet
So many questions.
nothing.
Yep.
All right. Well, after the warding fails, which I gotta say, love Zayden for his support of Violet. He's like, you'll try again. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Nobody's disappointed in you.
I mean, was she really going to get that on the first try anyway?
Of course not. Of course
That's
not.
crazy to assume. So,
But of course, Violet is used to getting things right. So, like
Yeah.
this whole book, as she points out later on, she says, I made all the right decisions in Fourth Wing and all the wrong ones in Iron Flame. And we see it. She's so lost. She fails a little bit according to her, She fails a little bit at runes. She's not the best here. She's failing at history. And so
she's not used to it.
For the wards not to work, she's just like, I'm a failure. She's in her little, she's just kind of in her feels.
Definitely in her feels. Throughout the whole book, I think.
Yeah.
We kind of skipped over it a bit, but I wanted to ask if we could talk about the Sorrengail siblings reuniting.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. When Mira shows up, I was like, yes, they're going to finally get to be together. And Brennan comes out with his hands and he's like, love Mira, yay. And she punches him right in the nose.
Good for her.
Beautiful.
Love her.
Beautiful.
She's so
Love
good.
Mm-hmm.
I just immediately was like, and this made me love Mira because I would do the same thing. I would be so mad.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
My younger sibling worked at Domino's. Somebody robbed the store and held them at gunpoint. And I found out about it weeks later. And they came over to the house and I looked them in the eye and I punched them in the arm. And they were just like, what was that for? I was like, you didn't tell me.
Yeah, it would really anger me.
I was like, that's for getting held up. How dare you?
One of the best parts about this is now they all know and they're all brought into the fold as like a group. But then why is it that when they're in battle brief, Violet's like, oh, no one here knows that he's my brother. And I'm like, how? How is that possible?
Maybe they can't put it together because of the silvering of her hair and the decoloring of her.
But they can tell that Mira's her sister.
Yeah.
They know Mira's her sister. It's different when you know something.
I think what she's saying, connecting the dots. If they know Mira is Brennan's sister, then they would have to know Violet is also Brennan's sister.
They don't know. Well, I mean, Violet Squad knows, but they don't know that. Most everybody doesn't know that Mira is Brennan's sister.
How not? They have that huge fight. She punches him and she tells him that he is a coward in front of all these people.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody saw that, but even still, if like one person saw that, you'd think that it would fly through the rest of the school.
You'd think.
Yeah.
And they aren't keeping it a secret very well, because when U-Boat comes in...
U-Boat?
Nice.
And
Brittany just starts using
Nazis.
a bunch of
We're going to
U
Nazi
words.
this.
Like, really? You went there?
When he comes in and he's concerned, Brennan's like, I can handle my sister.
But can ya?
In the way siblings
Handle each other.
handle each other.
Yeah. Another thing that is from that section is when they talk about the map in Battle Brief, because Violet comes into Battle Brief and she's like, there's a new, more accurate map. And it includes the Isles, which we have not heard about up until this point. And there's 5 large islands and 13 small. And I thought this was interesting. Also, the fact that De Vera is like, welcome to Battle Brief, traitors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love her.
She's great.
Mhm.
But I thought this was interesting because this is actually a really great writing choice on Rebecca Yaros's part, because if a lot of people don't realize that maps are like a huge tool for propaganda, and that we often see maps and don't realize what they are and aren't showing. We just take them as factual documents, but they're not.
Here be dragons.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I thought it was great that that's pointed out, but why have we never heard about the islands, and what is this agreement?
So somebody asked Rebecca Yaros why the islands weren't on the map, why they're talked about in the book, but they don't show up on the map in the book. And she said to include them on the map was deemed too spoilery.
It's propaganda.
And since Violet didn't see a map with them on there previously, this is Violet's book, so
Yeah.
we will learn more as Violet learns more.
Yeah, no, it makes plenty of sense.
But yeah, I expected fully to have those islands on the map, in Onyx Storm's map, but I'm told it's not there.
Yeah.
Same old map.
Boo.
And I wanted to get, because I said something about it before and it was just kind of in the midst of the other stuff, but what are your theories on what the 6 and the 1 mean?
So when I first read the book, I wondered and wondered, why do they just ignore the 1? Why did they ignore the 1? They only discuss the 6. But there is part whenever they go into the wardstone thing, she says the 6 and the 1 and points to the stone, and she thinks it's the wardstone is what the 1 is meant to be. And I never caught that on the however many reads until now. I always just wondered why they never mentioned what the 1 was.
Yeah.
When Jacinia translates Lyra's journal, it's just 7. So I think that was Warwick's way of being confusing.
Really? It was just an ass move?
Say that again.
Really? He's just an
It was just an ass move?
He's just an asshole. As far as the alliances go, what did you mean by that when you brought up the maps?
I think it's later, but there's a mention when Xaden and Violet are in Paromiel, and Viscount Takaris is talking to them, and she makes a note that Paromiel refused every proposal from the Isle Kingdoms. Or wait,
The Queen.
is she making this note? It's
a heading.
This is the quote from at the beginning of the chapter. My bad. It says, having refused every proposal from the Isle Kingdoms, Queen Mariah has named her distant cousin, Viscount Takaris of Cordyn, as her heir. As the Viscount is living in his 5th decade and has no direct heirs of his own, the decision has not been a popular one. And I said, assuming this info is correct, because you never really know what's correct anymore, what proposals did the Isle Kingdom offer? And it says, so what my first thought was, I'm assuming it's an alliance. My second thought was proposals for protection? Or are we talking about proposals for what?
My thought is proposal for marriage for an alliance. Just like, I mean, if you think about Xaden's mother, she made a marriage alliance with Finn, and all she had to do was stay there until her child was 10 years old, and then she left.
I didn't know that. Why is it giving Zuko vibes? Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Well, my thought would be a marriage proposal for an alliance.
That makes sense.
Let's talk about Felix's training sessions.
Yes, let's discuss.
Felix is such a good teacher. I love seeing him with Violet. Not only is he a smart ass at her, like, that was good! Really? What the hell was that? But he talks to her like she's a person, for one. And 2, he teaches her to actually like her power. Which, if you remember, when she first used it and it killed Jack, she hated it. She was like, I hate, I'm a weapon. What am I going to do but kill people? And so she's always kind of had this, I don't want to say fear of it, but she distanced herself from it. Like, I love watching it do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, honey, it's you.
Honey.
You're doing it.
Can we maybe talk for a second about how this is the coolest power ever and you don't even want to claim it, is what Felix is saying?
Yeah. And first of all, it just shows how shitty of a teacher Carr is.
Yeah.
He didn't teach her properly. He focused on quantity over quality. And part of me feels like he didn't know how to train her. I don't know. But
yeah,
Felix says it's probably because he was scared shitless of her. What do y'all think?
I don't think he knew what to do with it.
I don't know. Because, Brittany, your questions on here, was it on purpose? I don't know.
You think Kara was trying to keep her from being powerful?
She is their ultimate weapon. You would
Only if he can control her, though. And by then, they could probably tell that they could not control her because Xaden had power over her in the very feminist sense of the word.
Right. Right.
He had
Clearly.
his body over her. But yeah, it makes me think that Carr didn't teach her properly on purpose.
Yeah. And I did like the fact that he does kind of answer that question that Brittany brought up before of if she's actually a lightning wielder or if that was just the form that it took. And he tells her it's raw power, that's just the form that it took, that she creates that power.
Yeah.
I was thinking along those lines when I was writing my notes and looking at you guys' notes, and I think that is how her signet answers to who she is as a person, which is her need to be able to solve problems, her need to be able to take something and have control over it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And by creating something out of nothing, she's molding power, like molding energy around her to make it work for her, which is really interesting. I think that does work for her character.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps her protect those that she loves, which is definitely part of her character, as Takaris points out later.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the talk about energy here, because he says that she is the biggest energy field, that she creates energy, that she is wielding pure power. She uses that energy when using her lightning in that fight with the Venin in Cordyn. She draws it down and it strikes the chest first because the energy was drawn there. And she uses that to later then kill the wyvern and learn to kind of control her power. But I do, there's a lot of talk about energy fields. And I feel like there might be something to this later.
Could she power the wardstones?
She can imbue.
I mean, yeah. I don't see why not. She could probably use a lightning strike to power a wardstone. Or imbue.
At this point, Rebecca Yarrow said that we've seen 85% of what her signet can do. So,
including Onyx Storm?
Including Onyx Storm.
Okay. I was expecting in the scene where they're at Paromial, I was expecting for her to use those daggers as lightning rods, kind of, because okay. So the cool thing about the way that it ends up in the book is that it does lend towards this discussion about energy, right? So that's good. But I was expecting her to be a little smart with it because it's Violet and use those daggers, the metal daggers, and throw them and have them collect the lightning strike. Because, as we know, lightning is drawn to metal or tall things like trees or whatever. And if she were to use the daggers to be her way of striking, it would be so clever. And I felt like it was a missed opportunity for her to, if she would throw them and then that be a way for the lightning to find her target. It would work so well because she's already so talented at throwing daggers.
That is true. I think that would have been an awesome, epic, cool scene. But you also have to remember at this point, she thinks she can't aim.
But I'm saying it's a way to get around that. I'm saying it's a way to get around the not being able to aim. She doesn't need to aim if she trusts that lightning works the way it's supposed to work and will go towards metal.
I guess so.
It's a very good thought.
Yeah, I wish she would have done that, but
I thought it would be so cool.
It also goes for water.
It does. And I wasn't necessarily disappointed with what does happen because it's still cool. But when I was first reading it, and even when I was reading it this time too, I was like, oh yeah, I really wish this had happened. And I kind of hope we see it later, like in Onyx Storm or something.
That would be
because,
cool.
Well, for me in Onyx Storm, you've read Onyx Storm.
Oh, yeah. I've only looked up a couple things.
Only a couple things.
What else have you looked up? I thought you said
that was pretty much it. The second signet was the big thing I think I looked up. I don't think I looked up anything else. But
oh, good.
I do want to ask about the timing for Taryn. So she is getting attacked. She is calling out to Taryn, and he said, "I'll be there in minutes." Now, why is it that other major flight times can get cut by hours? Because Taryn is bigger, he's badder, he can get there faster. But yet, he is in the same fucking vicinity, and it's going to take him minutes to span that space. That makes absolutely no sense.
Depends on how far he is, because he is hunting sheep, and we don't know how far away that is. Even when he was at Basgiath and she was dangling from the turret and Jack saved her, he was flying to her to get to her and said he would have been too late.
But see, that doesn't make sense. That should have been a quick, flight, maybe 30 seconds. And
I kind of have to agree with Christy here.
I agree.
I do agree that it's a little off.
Yeah.
It's kind of like whenever they were going to kill her in her sleep and he couldn't make it in time then too. It does seem to be very convenient of when he can and cannot make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He needs to get that ass hustling.
It's just
for just fucking lazy dragoning.
Aww.
Just a good plot device.
Let's talk about Cordyn real quick. I have a rant about Takaris. But first, first I want to talk about why are the Venin skipping Cordyn? Most of Krovla has not had a Venin attack.
I think. Sorry, I just pointed at you guys.
You're good.
I think that, I don't know, this is probably like a crack theory, but...
Love crack theories.
This is a crack theory,
we
but...
love the crack.
Oh, I know you love crack, Christy. So, Viscount Takaris is wearing blue, and he wants to collect Violet at all costs. And he happens to have multiple Venin just lying around. And he also happens to have a way to keep them,
Suspended,
yeah. So, I'm just wondering, I don't necessarily think he's a Venin, but I have to wonder what's going on with him that we don't understand. Because is he allying with the Venin? I just remembered the talk about robes and colors, and I was like, this is a little odd. And then also, just like you were about to bring up, why are they skipping Cordyn?
Yeah. Most of Krovla.
So, what if Basgiath, though, is creating these Venin, and maybe they're have some sort of alliance with Tic-tac, and then that way they get skipped for attacks like that?
Is Tic-tac Takaris?
Yeah,
I think so.
The first time I read that in the notes, I was like, who the fuck is Tic-tac?
And Brittany gets to use U-boat.
No, I love it. I just didn't put it together very fast for some reason. Oh my gosh. What, as you were saying.
Yeah. But what if those are little experiments and now he gets to use those experiments? Then I don't know.
Maybe so.
I just find it interesting that most of Krovla, with the exception of the attack on Resin and the small town 2 days prior to Resin, and then of course Pavis does get attacked at the end of this section, and they skipped over Cordyn. It feels, the way they describe it when they first talk about it is it's there for aesthetics. It's indefensible.
Yep.
It's easy.
They could easily walk right in and take it.
Yeah.
But they don't. And for what reason?
Yep.
Yeah, for what reason? Why?
What's going on that we don't understand? Also, go ahead.
Is there, we know that there are boxes that draw the Venin in. Is there boxes that kind of be like, stay away?
That is what I was going to say, too. Is there something that's keeping them out? Because we also know he just has... Viscount Dracarys, not only does he collect people, he collects valuable things. Like, he has that luminary. So what does he have that we don't know about that could be protecting them?
Which brings me to my rant. He is being ridiculously stupid about this luminary. He literally has the one thing that could make weapons for his flyers, and he's like, I'm gonna keep it to myself. So yes, if he had something that kept Venin away from Cordyn, it would make more sense that he's like, no, I want something for this luminary, instead of being like, yes, if I don't give you this luminary, I'm gonna die.
True.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It would make a lot of sense, because you'd think that he would want the protection of the flyers.
Yeah. And it makes no sense why he wouldn't have some common sense and be like, I need weapons. You have the materials to make the weapons. I have the device. But if I don't give you the device, I'm going to die, and so are you. And you'll probably die first because you're fighting them, and then you won't be able to protect me. So it is in my self-interest to give you this luminary, just to give it to you.
And
as long as you give me weapons back.
And honestly, it's kind of crazy that Xaden doesn't see that, because I feel like out of every character, Xaden would be the one to notice this, especially because of the fact that he dropped the alliance, or the betrothal with Cat, which I'm so glad we haven't brought her up. But you would think that because there's no longer a betrothal, that Xaden would be on the lookout for the problems between them and Dracarys. And I feel like either one, Xaden is ruled way more by his emotions than we realize, or two, this is just very convenient, because I feel like somebody should have realized this.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree. Do we have to talk about Cat? Do we have to?
Let's talk about Gryphons first.
All right.
So we were introduced to Gryphons before, but we actually get to learn more about them in this section. But
They're so cool.
It does bring up a couple of questions for me, like, where are their hatching grounds? Where did they come from?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Part of me wondered, before we had finished Iron Flame way back in the day, part of me wondered if the one was a griffin, because...
Yeah, that would have been cool.
I mean, you can't just leave them out of everything. I understand that the dragons are, like, big and magical, but it would make sense if the griffins were folded in somehow. I mean, they have their own magic.
Yeah. A complete magic, yeah. Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I always thought that they were going to be a part of it somehow.
And then Marin could be a part of them.
Yeah.
I like
she
Marin.
Could be the one. I do.
Marin and
Me
Serena are my favorite Griffin riders.
Yeah. Marin's reasonable.
Traeger can suck a dick.
Yeah.
Going after Rhea like that.
Nobody goes after my girl, Rhiannon.
Seriously. But the Griffins channel magic to their riders. They all have lesser magic, same as the dragons. But they also have some of them. We don't know if all of them have it, but some develop more powers that they call mind work.
Right.
So we know that one of them, at least, is a truth sayer. And another of them, Cat, she can manipulate emotions. Makes me wonder what other powers. I mean, clearly it's all mental stuff, but what other powers can you have?
As a mind worker?
Yeah.
As someone with mind work? I don't know, but I would be afraid of that. I would think that mind work is worse than physical thing.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I already have enough problems controlling my emotions and, overthinking things and being paranoid and spiraling. So, I mean, I don't need somebody enhancing that.
Yeah. And I mean, the people who use mind work at Basgaiath are feared. Mm-hmm. It's outlawed if you're an intrinsic, so I feel like the writers should be scared of them.
Yeah. I wonder if there are intensics among the Griffin riders.
Of course there are. That would make sense.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up, though, was Violet kind of points out that the signets and the mind work are very similar when she kind of makes the note that Takaris sees people's greatest desire, which is basically the opposite of what Varish could do to see their greatest weakness. Brings up the question, is Takaris a flyer? And if so, where the fuck is his griffin?
That's a good point. I was going to say, well, of course. It'd be dumb to assume that their mind work is not powerful enough to be a signet, but that's not the point you made. The point you made was he must be a flyer, which is a great point that I did not consider.
Me either.
Is
See,
this
what I mean by there's something going on with that man.
Is this
Oh my god, what if he ends up being a good guy?
What if he's a good guy?
Oh, no. I can't do Tic-tac as a good guy. No. That would just ruin it.
That would make this whole book terrible.
But is this an actual power that he has, or is it just like reading people and just...
I think it's a power.
I think it's like a power.
Then again, where the fuck is his griffin?
Yeah, and you know what? It also brings up the possibility of he just is possibly just playing both sides.
That's true. He seems like that kind of person.
Yeah.
I wonder if...
He's only 50, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At least around, so
in
he's
his
not older than that.
decade.
So
yeah,
he couldn't be...
50s.
Depending on when that was written.
True. Because what if he is the one of the first six, and he was the griffin, if we went with that theory, and that's why, and he's got some sort of wardstone protecting their frail city.
I refuse to accept that.
What if during a big fight, Tic-tac gets on his little griffin and they kick some ass, and then we're going to have to fucking like this guy.
He's the nephew of the queen?
Tic-tac gets on his little griffin.
He's the nephew of the current queen, correct?
Yeah.
You gotta think that they know when he was born. He ain't part of the first six.
Yeah, and he also has brown hair. He's not super old.
Well, but that could be that venom magic, you know?
But then he would look more like a venom.
Who live forever. But see, what if they've got that sort of hocus pocus thing where like they drink the essence of children and then it takes the red from their eyes and you can't tell?
Now Tic-tac's drinking babies. Now he's bathing in the blood of virgins.
I mean, he did just set Violet up to die.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which also, dumb move. She's your best weapon against the venom. And you're going to be like, to prove that you're worthy to talk about giving you this luminary that I need you to have to survive, I need you to potentially die.
But that goes back to what you were saying. Something's going on because just like you pointed out, the fact that he's willing to kill what appears to be his best option between Xaden, Violet, and just that whole, their protection. He has to know he's got protection some other way.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was the venom ranks, since we're talking about venom. In one of the headings, I believe it's chapter 47, Drake Cordello, which, potential love interest for Mira.
They can't say, oh, you're just his type. Oh, I would never date a griffin rider.
Never.
That means you're going to have to. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now you have to.
So Drake Cordella writes this thing where he's like, okay, so to defeat them, we need to know their ranks.
I read your notes on this before I read the full notes on it. There was a comment about it, and I was like, what the fuck is an ASIM? And then I got to that part of the book, and I was like, oh, right. All right.
So initiates, basically Jack and Xaden, they have reddish rings to their eyes that come and go. ASIMs have red eyes in degrees, and they get distended veins if they're riled. So this venom that she fights could be an ASIM. I assume that he is riled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's
in
also
the box.
Yeah. Hasn't been able to drain. There's
Do
also
they have to eat
I would assume not. I don't know.
after a certain point in time? Are they just like vampires and they just exist?
That's what it sounds like.
I know something that Jack says about them later,
Okay.
which I can tell you.
Nope.
But
Nope.
sages are, their eyes are permanently red and their veins are permanently distended and they expand with age. Mavens are their generals and have never been captured for examination. My thought on this, because the one at the end of the book, I don't remember exactly if we get a description of him, but he claims to be a general. Do we know this for certain? I don't know. But it made me think, if we don't know what a maven looks like, what if they go back to being normal looking?
Yup. Yep.
So they can blend in.
Or maybe they just have the power to make themselves look normal.
Or they have the power to make themselves look normal, to hide it.
Yep.
What if Lilith is a maven?
Yep.
I will say, the one from Violet's dream that they think is a sage says that he's been alive for centuries. So would the mavens have to be a lot longer? Is it based on power? How do you become a general?
General Sorrengail.
That'd be
I mean-
crazy. But
for the
we know
venom. And I don't think Lilith would have sacrificed herself if she was a general for the venom.
yeah, and I was about to say, and we know that she dies. And if she had been like a maven, I feel like we would have known at the end.
True.
There would have been some indicator. She would have become ugly after her death or something, like the crazy eyes, or I don't know.
Also, these stones that they quarried from the east of the Dunas River, nobody talks about it, but if they can stop venom power, why haven't they, built a wall of...
Seriously. Like the Game of Thrones wall.
Yeah.
Get all that stone.
Yeah. I mean, protect your city.
Yeah.
Protect your country. Why hasn't Navarre done that? Even though, they're not fighting the venom, but Navarre is all about military use, efficiency, protection. Why haven't they done that?
They literally just breezed right over that.
Let's talk about the hike. So the Takaris tells them they can take the luminary if they also take the Griffin Riders. Brennan,
Right.
I believe it's Brennan, comes up with this belief that the Riders will respect the Griffin Riders if they go on a hike together.
He said, you should trauma bond.
Yeah. But
You know what would help? If you guys almost died together.
Or if you watched your friend die together.
The thing is that yes, one person dies. It's not that much of a trauma. It's more like of an exhaustive walk.
Okay.
Watching her die?
Hold on. This is just like the parapet thing all over again.
Fucking Dylan.
I'm sensing a pattern here.
Dipshit Dylan and Lazy Llewellyn or whatever her name is.
Again, it's not that I don't think the parapet is dangerous, and it's not that I don't think this hike is dangerous. I'm just saying that for them to bond together, it's not enough for that. It's not like all
Brittany.
I mean, it shows on the page whenever they get to Erasure, they still hate each other to the point that they have to do challenges where they just beat the shit out of each other and they're like, okay, well, maybe this will work. It is not until they actually go into battle that trauma bonds them.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you there because there is evidence later that they still hate each other. What I'm latching onto is the fact that you're like,
Not the trap.
you're like, well, it was pointless, and actually,
It wasn't pointless.
it wasn't that dramatic.
For the writer, I mean, yes, again, Luella dies. But they die on a daily basis in this world.
Well, okay, hold on. There's also the fact that in the scope of someone's relationship with another person, you can't just forge it off of one thing, right? Like, you can't, like you're saying, you can't just send them into the fucking mountains and expect them to come back besties. Of course not. But is it formative for a foundation of trust? Yes.
Well, it didn't work. I mean, literally, fucking Cat, makes
Cat is a different story.
She was going to look for something.
She turns the entire group, except for Marin, because Marin's awesome. She turns the entire group against Violet and the writers by posting about Mira's kills and about saying that you chose to drop the flyer instead of your squad mate. And I'm sorry, I have a rant about this too. If I were in that situation, not that Violet chose, she didn't. But if I were in that situation, I'm sure as hell gonna choose the person I know, my friend, over some stranger I just met.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
And Kat would do the same damn thing. And then she's gonna sit there and bitch about Violet, who literally had her arm pulled out of its socket trying to hold Luella up and couldn't help her. Yeah. It's like the in Zodiac Academy, I got so mad every time they said, it's our throne, it's our birthright. No, it fucking wasn't. This is my that. Shut the fuck up about choosing the flyer over the writer. Or the writer over the flyer.
But this is what I mean is, like, Cat is standalone an issue. But if Cat had not been there, if Cat were not a variable in this, it would have served as a good foundation for them to work together. And I still think it did, because Marin ends up seeing what happened and vouches for Violet. And I do think that stuff like this is important for them to be able to do together so that they learn to trust one another. I mean, the fighting thing doesn't help. Literally, they said, we're going to force you guys to like one another, so go spar. And it's like, they use that as an opportunity to beat each other. And I don't know. I'm just saying, I get Brennan's idea here. Did it play out the way that we had hoped? No. But I understand.
I just think he should have gone more the route of what Serena said. Like, if we don't work together, we're all gonna die.
Uh-huh.
But I will say, I've seen a lot of, I guess, memes or something. I don't know. There's nothing that bonds people over hating the same person.
Yep. And that makes sense. I get it. Why do you think the army is so good at creating units and forming lasting bonds?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure you got your brother's back or your sister's.
One identified enemy. They can unite against one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is like pack mentality.
Yeah, which you would think that these people could bond over the fact that they have a shared enemy.
Yeah.
Put aside your differences,
but,
or you're going to die.
But, like they say in the book, it does make sense that it's not done overnight. I mean, like, they were fighting each other for years. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. On to new topics. Runes.
Yeah, we gotta discuss that.
Yeah, they start a new class, and runes seem to be these little pockets of magic that anybody can use. They have basically infinite amount of purposes as long as you know how to create the right shapes and tie them at the right places, and they can basically do anything.
Runes are incredibly overpowered when you think about it. If you know how to use them correctly, they're very dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about the Rebellion Relic rune just for a minute. Colonel Mari made these. There's 107 of them. They can only be used once, but literally it gives them the power to be hidden from Melgrim.
Yeah.
And if theories are correct, might even give them a second signet. We don't know. But what else can runes do? There's I will say, we learned the rebellion relics. They talk about a baby being born with one.
Mm-hmm.
I think because there was a lot of confusion in the fandom of how she was born with it if the dragon didn't give it to her. I think either the mom was holding it if the dad was the traitor when the dad died, or if the mom was the traitor, and they probably put both the parents to death the way they did Liam's. But if the mom was the traitor, she obviously had to be born first. And maybe Liam was misinformed or he lied.
Yeah. So when I was editing, I realized that this whole time up until reread, that in my mind, I thought that the rebellion relics were put
Coda.
on. Yeah, were caused by Coda, which is said in one of the books.
In the first book.
Yeah.
In the first chapter, Mira says it because that's what people believe.
Yeah, and that makes sense to people like Mira. But then we read this part, which I had totally forgotten, and it says that it really is kind of confusing because the runes were meant to protect. It's given to the parents of the rebellion, and the children are affected.
It's given to the children of the rebellion.
Okay. But I thought
they all held it in their hand. That's why the runes start at the wrist.
Oh, right, because Xaden says that he carried it every day. Okay. I still wonder if it's going to have more to it, though.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It also, if the usage of runes was banned, it does beg the question, how did the Venom get the runes? How Besgaeth was built on runes? We have Brennan's runes in his hand. And there is a theory on Reddit, and I forgot to get the name of the person. I'm sorry to whoever it is. But Trissa says that runes are magic that you wield in air, and then you put it in something like metal, wood, or some kind of material. Any material that you choose. What?
You imbue it.
Temper it.
I guess she uses temper, but
yeah,
I think it's the same kind of idea.
Sorta, yeah. But who, all through Fourth Wing, is making wooden objects?
True. You think he carved little runes into the little dragons?
I don't know. I doubt that this is a thing, but I wanted to bring it up because I love the idea. I want this idea.
We talked about those little wooden dragons. I think it is.
What if that's how she brings Liam back? Not like back to life, but like have him be a part of the books. What if those dragon carvings are used later?
I would love that because
oh my gosh.
All through part 1, we got to see little bits of Liam on the page. And to have his dragons, his little wooden carving dragons mean something. Oh my
god. I need that desperately.
I want
I think that's the case.
So bad.
There's too much of them in the book.
If she doesn't, I will be devastated.
Yeah.
I want it so bad, but I don't think we'll get it. But I want it.
I do. I think we absolutely will get it.
I hope you're
100%.
Right. But that brings us to, there's multiple runes that we don't know the full extent of. We don't know, like you said, Brennan's hand. We don't know if Liam's carvings had runes. We don't know if the relics are runed.
We don't know what the runes mean on Violet's daggers, except for 2 of them.
Right.
But I have a feeling that the runes are going to play a major role in the series. I would like for maybe a cure for Venom. I'm just saying.
So, one more thing. When you started to talk about Liam, the way that, what's her name, Trissa?
Yeah.
Trissa? The way that Trissa teaches the runes, can sign language be runes?
That is an interesting thought. I would hope so.
She makes the markings in the air.
Yeah.
Like the Dragon Prince.
Like what?
They are.
From Netflix, the Dragon Prince.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I haven't either.
You would love it. It's so good.
I think I know what it is. I have to check it out.
It's animated.
Yeah.
It's really good, but same concept. He's a mage and he does them in the air.
Rebecca has said that these shapes on the front of the books
Where is my book?
are runes.
Oh, I don't have
Oh
my
my
book in here.
gosh. Yeah, I was just thinking, I thought you were going to say this. It came to me as you were saying it, but the whole book, Jasinia's been hand signing and Sawyer's learning to sign. Wouldn't it be crazy if you could pass off runes as hand signs, or if sign language could be considered a rune? That'd be wild.
That would
That's
be cool.
an awesome theory. Yes.
We just need to get Jasinia bonded to either a dragon or a griffin so that she could have power to...
Dude, she'd be so cool. I would love that.
Yes.
Oh my god,
Yes.
I wish that happened. I have a feeling it's not going to happen. You've already read Onyx Storm, so probably not. But
There are 2 more books after that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Something like
Seems
that would
kinda
happen in the last book.
that would be cool.
Okay. So, last but not least at all,
Oh gosh.
one of our favorite scenes.
The throne scene?
The throne scene!
Oh my gosh. We had to discuss it at least a little bit.
Yeah. My house, my chair, my woman.
Ah!
Yeah. Just
Okay.
so you know.
Oh, Lord.
Listen, Zayden is not my man, but on occasion he says things that I'm like, all right, I see you. Oh, I love that he's like obsessed. He's just literally obsessed. I prefer that in a fictional man. I
Yeah.
don't like them aloof.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to be aloof. I want you to be desperate.
I like that he is desperate for her as much as possible in
Yes.
private.
Yes.
He's aloof, not towards her, but just in a sense of if I were looking at them from afar, I couldn't tell how desperate he is for her.
I agree.
With the exception of how he acted in Cordyn, because he was like, I can't control myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
But
I also like. But I agree. I wouldn't want a guy to be so obsessed that he's a withering mess in public. You know what I mean? Like, that's, control yourself.
Yeah.
But, but the idea that he's like literally always thinking about her. Love it.
yes. And his like, when I come back, when I'm away, this is what I think. And oh yeah, by the way, I've never fucked Cat with my tongue.
He said, and also, fuck her. Fuck her, bitch. I'm sorry. Kat pisses me off so much in this part of the book. I like her later,
yeah.
but, I hate that kind of woman. I hate that petty, catty shit.
Yeah. And it was funny. Rebecca Yarros did say that she put Cat in here, not as she doesn't want Xaden. She just wants the power. And she wondered how we as readers would react to her as opposed to, say, if she were a man.
Mm.
But the thing is, I'd hate her if she were a man too, because
Yeah.
if she went about it in a more straightforward to Xaden way,
Mm-hmm.
totally okay.
Yep.
But no, she is literally trying to seduce him away.
It's the playing dirty that pisses me off. Like the opening up the door and she's wearing like see-through lingerie.
Robes. Yeah.
Like, girl, that is messy. Do not fuck around with that. If she was just honest from the get-go and not playing these games, then maybe, but like I said, I like her later, but
Yeah.
it's just this, I almost would argue that Rebecca Yarros,
She's a misstep. Cat is a misstep. I get the idea of wanting a character like that. But again, if a man wanted power, he wouldn't try to seduce it away from another man.
well, right.
He would challenge him to a duel or something.
I could
Do
see
that.
I could see a man doing that. I could say, let's say we flip the gender 100% and it's a man doing the same thing.
Still hate him.
It doesn't make a difference. It still fucking sucks. And I think it's silly of Rebecca Yarros to be like, Oh, but would you hate her if she was a man? Because yes. Because you know who else is like this that pisses me off?
Who?
Dane. He also does petty shit.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that she's a woman.
Yeah, and the thing is that Kat's going after power doesn't come off as going after power. It comes off as, I'm gonna seduce your man away. And that bothers me. Like, she's attacking Violet because of her association with Xaden. If you want Xaden's power, go confront him to his face about it.
Well, arguably, if she wanted the crown, I understand why she wouldn't confront him about it, but I still just think there were other ways.
The way she's going about it by attacking Violet isn't going to win her any points with Xaden either.
I agree. I totally agree.
So back to the throne scene. I love that he gets her off. He shares his thoughts with her. And she brings up her exes and is like, how would you feel if my ex implied that not only did they have me first, but they intend on having me last? And they know what I taste like and what it feels like to have them on top of me. And Xaden's like, well, after she forces him to answer, he's like, well, first of all, I'd kill him because anybody who implies that we're not in game is just dead to me.
And that's the right answer.
Yeah. And it also points out that he is already right now thinking of them as in game.
Yes. Which I love.
Yeah. So
I remember when I first read Iron Flame that I thought Rebecca Yarros was going to make them break up and then get back together. And it kind of sort of happens, but not in the way that I thought was going to happen. And I literally was dreading it. Dreading it.
You also said the same thing about Onyx Storm.
Yeah. I don't want it to happen. I cannot do that. I hate that. It's too much for my little heart. I can't do it.
But I do also want to talk about, he gives her some hard truths during this scene as well, where she had all the emotions that Kat just enhanced them. And she has insecurity. And he's like, I don't know why you have this. There was a theory that I know I talked about it with Lily before reading Onyx Storm, right before it came out. I don't know if I talked about it with you, Christy, or if it was on the group chat. But there was a theory that maybe her insecurity, because it comes after she kind of realizes that Xaden is an aristocrat, that maybe one of her exes was an aristocrat.
Yeah.
And that is why she feels inferior, because that ex, who was an aristocrat, made her feel like she wasn't worthy.
Yeah, there's multiple scenes in the books where she points out how Xaden seems to be at home in aristocracy, like Paromial, but she sticks out like a sore thumb.
And one of the prevailing theories is, since she knows Cam, aka Auric, so well, is that maybe Halden is one of her exes. And
although he's not in this book, is he?
No, he's mentioned once, but that's it.
But not by name.
By name. When they're in the heist, she turns to Auric and she says, does Halden know?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just thought there was no way.
That's a good thought, though. I actually think that would make sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
I just think it's funny that with General Sorrengail and her close relationship with Auric, that she isn't considered aristocrat herself.
Well, military is a little different, but yeah.
So one of the last things I want to mention is one of my favorite scenes in this book, other than, the rescue scene, is that scene where she goes up to Kat and they're, like, welcome to Second Squad. And Kat is still being a bitch. And Violet turns around and she's like, oh, by the way, that trick you mentioned with the fingers.
Thank you.
Thanks. I I can't not read it without dying laughing.
Dude, what a way to own her like that.
And the fact that everybody hears her and just bursts out laughing, and they're like, mic drop.
The way Imogen was like, damn. God damn. Yeah, I would have been the same. I would have been like, oh, I can't believe she just said that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will end it there. What a fun discussion tonight. We hope you guys will join us for next week's episode. We'll be discussing Book 2, Iron Flame, chapters 51 through 66. New episodes drop each week, and don't forget to check out last season's discussion on the Zodiac Academy.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. That like and follow are super important for us to continue to bring you new episodes each week, so please, please, please do so. You can also support us by joining our growing community on Patreon. Thank you for listening to the Midnight Raiders podcast. We'll see you next week.
Happy reading, listeners. Don't stay up too late.